The first time Mateo Alvarez noticed her, it wasn't because she was beautiful, though she was. It was because she laughed at the exact same moment he did. The TV above the bar flickered with a late-night soccer match, the kind only the truly devoted stayed up for. The commentary was half in Spanish, half in English, and entirely chaotic. Mateo sat in his usual boots still dusty from a long day crawling through attics and rooftops fixing HVAC systems across Sacramento. His shirt smelled faintly of insulation and Freon, but this place, this familiar, low-lit, always busy restaurant, felt like home. He came here 3 or 4 nights a week. The staff knew him. They didn't always know his name, but they knew his order: grilled chicken, extra fries, iced tea, no lemon. That night, the striker missed an open goal in spectacular fashion. Mateo shook his head and laughed under his breath. And then he heard it, another laugh, sharp and bright, from just behind him. He turned slightly. She stood there holding a tray, her dark hair tied back neatly, her eyes still fixed on the TV. She was trying not to laugh again, pressing her lips together like she might get in trouble for it. "Can you believe that?" Mateo said, gesturing toward the screen. She glanced at him, surprised, but then smiled. "I can. It's this team. They always find a way to disappoint." Mateo leaned back, suddenly interested. "You follow them?" "I do," she said, "unfortunately." He grinned. "Same here. Every game, every heartbreak." She shifted the tray to one hand. "Then you must be very patient." "Or very stupid," he said. That made her laugh again. "Lynn," she said, nodding slightly as she introduced herself. "Mateo." "Do you want your usual?" she asked. He blinked. "You know my usual?" "You always sit here. You always watch the game, and you always look like you might yell at the TV." Mateo laughed. "That obvious, huh?" "A little." "Then yeah," he said, "I'll take my usual." As she walked away, Mateo turned back to the game, but he wasn't really watching anymore. Over the next few weeks, Lynn became part of his routine in a way he hadn't expected. She always seemed to be working when he came in, or maybe he started coming in when she was working. He wasn't sure which came first. They talked more each time. At first it was just soccer, debating lineups, complaining about coaching decisions, celebrating rare victories like they were personal triumphs. Then it expanded. "Do you ever do anything besides watch this team lose?" she asked one night, sliding his plate onto the table. Mateo shrugged. "Work mostly. HVAC doesn't fix itself." "That sounds exciting." "It's not," he admitted, "but it pays the bills." She leaned against the booth slightly, lowering her voice. "What would you rather be doing?" He thought about it. "Out on the water," he said finally. "There's this place, a lake not too far from here. I go paddleboarding when I can. Clears your head." Her eyes lit up. "You paddleboard?" "Yeah, I love paddleboarding," she said quickly, "and paddle boating. Anything on the water, really." Mateo smiled, surprised at how genuinely excited she looked. "Really?" "Really." "Then you should come with me sometime." The words came out easier than he expected. She hesitated, just for a second, then nodded. "Okay." The lake was quiet that morning, the kind of stillness that made everything feel untouched. Mateo arrived early, unloading his board and checking the straps twice. He wasn't nervous exactly, but there was a tightness in his chest he couldn't ignore. When Lynn pulled up, she waved from her car, her smile easy and familiar. "You actually showed up," he said as he walked over. "You sound surprised." "I had to make sure you weren't just being polite." She laughed. "I don't wake up early on my day off to be polite." "Good," he said, "because I was hoping you'd come." They carried the boards down to the water together. The lake reflected the sky perfectly, a sheet of glass broken only by the gentle ripple of their movements as they stepped onto the boards. For a while they paddled in comfortable silence. "This is nice," Lynn said eventually. "Yeah, I get why you like to come here," she said. Mateo glanced at her. "It's better with company." She smiled but didn't say anything. They drifted farther from shore, the world shrinking to just the two of them and the quiet rhythm of the water. Then came the sound. At first it was distant, a low hum that didn't belong. Mateo turned his head. "Do you hear that?" Lynn frowned. "Yeah?" The hum grew louder, faster. A speedboat. It cut across the far side of the lake, moving too quickly, too recklessly. Mateo's stomach tightened. "They're going too fast," he said. The boat veered. For a split second, everything slowed. Then it happened. The impact was sudden, violent, a blur of noise and water and force. Mateo didn't even have time to react. One moment he was standing, the next he was gone. Mateo! Lynn hit the water hard, grasping as she surfaced. Her board drifted away, forgotten. Mateo! She spun, scanning the water wildly. Then she saw him. He floated face down, motionless. No! No, no, no! She swam as fast as she could, panic surging through her veins. When she reached him, she turned him over, her hands shaking. His eyes were closed. His skin was pale. Stay with me, she whispered, though she didn't know if he could hear her. She dragged him toward the boards, struggling against the weight of him and the resistance of the water. By the time she got him onto the board, her arms burned, her breath ragged. Mateo, please! No response. She checked his breathing. Nothing. Her heart dropped. No, no, you don't get to do this. She pressed her hands to his chest. Come on. 1 breath, 2 compressions, 3. She lost count. All that mattered was the rhythm. Stay with me, she repeated. Stay with me. The world narrowed to the rise and fall of his chest, the sound of her own voice, the desperate hope that she wasn't too late. Sirens in the distance. She didn't stop. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and uncertainty. Lynn sat in the waiting room, her clothes still damp, her hands trembling despite everything. They had taken him from her so quickly. One moment she was performing CPR. The next she was standing on the shore, watching as paramedics worked over him with practiced urgency. She hadn't even realized she was crying until someone handed her a towel. Are you family? A nurse had asked. Lynn hesitated. No, she said softly, I'm a friend. The word felt too small. Now she sat alone, staring at the floor, replaying everything in her mind. The laugh, the conversations, the way he said it's better with company. Miss? She looked up. The doctor stood in front of her. He's stable, he said. You saved his life. The words hit her like a wave. He's going to be okay? She asked. We believe so. He's unconscious right now, but his vitals are strong. Lynn let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Can I see him? The doctor nodded. Mateo woke up to confusion. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The air smelled wrong. His body ached in ways he couldn't explain. He blinked, trying to focus. Mateo! He turned his head. A woman stood by his bed. She looked relieved, almost overwhelmingly so. Hi, she said softly. You're awake. He frowned. Do I know you? The words hung in the air. Lynn felt something inside her crack. What? She whispered. Mateo shook his head slightly. I'm sorry, I don't recognize you. Her chest tightened. It's me, she said. Lynn, we met at the restaurant. I'm sorry, he said again, more firmly this time. I think you have the wrong person. The room spun. No, she said, her voice trembling. No, it's not Mateo. It's me. He looked at her, confusion turning to discomfort. I'm married, he said. You shouldn't... The words hit harder than anything else. Married? That's not possible, Lynn said. He frowned. Of course it is. My wife... What's her name? The nurse asked gently from the doorway. Isabel, Mateo said without hesitation. The nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor. How long have you been married, Mateo? 10 years, he said. The doctor nodded slowly. Mateo, you were divorced 5 years ago. Silence. That's not right, he said, but doubt crept into his voice. 2 days later, Lynn met Isabel. She hadn't known what to expect, but the woman who walked into the hospital room wasn't what she had imagined. She was calm, composed, sad, but not in a fragile way. You're Lynn, Isabel said. It wasn't a question. Lynn nodded. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't know. He told them he was married, and It's okay, Isabel said gently. You didn't know. He didn't either. She looked through the glass at Mateo, who sat on the bed, staring at his hands like they might hold answers. They said you saved him. Lynn swallowed. I just did what anyone would do. Isabel shook her head slightly. Not everyone would have. They stood in silence for a moment. He doesn't remember anything recent, Lynn said quietly. Not me, not any of it. I know. And he thinks he's still with you. Isabel let out a small, sad smile. In a way, I guess he is. Weeks passed. Mateo improved physically, but his memory remained fractured. He remembered his childhood, his early career, his marriage. But the last 5 years were a blank space filled with ghosts. Lynn still visited. At first it was painful. He was polite, but distant, a stranger. But she couldn't stay away. One afternoon she found Isabel sitting beside his bed. He still doesn't remember, Lynn said. Isabel shook her head. I've been thinking, she said. There's a church I go to. It's helped me through a lot. Lynn hesitated. I'm not very religious. Neither was I, Isabel said. Not really. But sometimes you just need to hope for something bigger than you. Understand? Lynn looked at Mateo, at the man who had laughed with her, who had shared a quiet morning on the water, who now looked at her like she was no one. Okay, she said, I'll go. The church was quiet. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting colors across the wooden pews. Lynn sat beside Isabel, unsure of what to do. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. When it was time to pray, Lynn closed her eyes. She didn't know what she believed, but she knew what she wanted. Please, she thought, just let him remember. The next day, everything changed. Mateo woke up slowly. The ceiling was familiar now. The ache in his body was duller, but something felt different. He blinked, and then a laugh, a voice, a lake, water. Mateo, can you believe that? His heart skipped. Lynn? The name came out before he could stop it. He sat up, ignoring the pain. Memories rushed back all at once, overlapping, overwhelming. The restaurant, the conversations, the morning on the lake, the impact. Lynn! The nurse rushed in. Mateo, what's wrong? Where is she? He asked. Lynn, she was here. The nurse smiled slightly. I'll go get her. Moments later, Lynn stepped into the room. She froze. Mateo? He looked at her, and this time there was no confusion, only recognition. You're here, he said, his voice breaking slightly. Tears filled her eyes. You remember? He nodded. Everything. She let out a shaky laugh that turned into a sob. You idiot, she said. You scared me. I'm sorry, he said. I couldn't. She crossed the room and hugged him carefully, afraid he might disappear again. I'm just glad you're back, she whispered. Later, Isabel stood in the doorway watching them. She smiled softly. Looks like you got your miracle, she said. Mateo looked at her, gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, he said. For what? For everything. Isabel nodded. Then she turned and walked away. No one could explain what had happened. The doctors called it a delayed recovery, a neurological realignment, a coincidence. But Lynn remembered the quiet of the church, the way hope had felt like something real. And sometimes when Mateo laughed at the TV in that familiar restaurant, and she laughed with him at the exact same moment, she wondered. Maybe some things don't need explaining. Maybe some things were exactly what they felt like. A second chance. Or maybe a miracle.